Okay, so how do we take a picture with this setup? Well, the first thing we need to do is make sure that our trigger settings are correct and they're synced with our Chrome strobe lights. So a couple things about these settings. I don't know how well you can see these numbers, but we have two rows of numbers that are lit up here. The first one, this is called groups. It says all, 1, 2, 3, or 4. The reason for this setting, which is really handy if you're shooting bigger, is that you can group lights. So if you want to trigger only a certain light, or if you want to have several lights in one group and several lights in another group, you can sync all of that. And this trigger allows you to do that. We have a pretty simple setup here, so I always set it to all. But if I set, like for example, if I wanted to set this small light to group 1 and the bigger light to group 2, then I only wanted group 1 to trigger, then I would set this to group 1. And I would only be using that one light in group 1. And then I could toggle back and forth without having to go to the light to change it with my trigger. So it's kind of like a remote control. The second row of numbers, this has to do with frequency. So if you're shooting, maybe you're shooting in a big warehouse in LA or something, and you've got 3 studios set up, and everybody's working off of frequency waves. And if you're all set to the same frequency, you're going to have people next to you taking pictures, triggering your strobe lights because you're in the same radio frequency waves. So again, we are super simple here. We do not have that problem, but that is an explanation of what those are. And then on here, it's called channels. But on your strobe lights, they're called frequencies. So we just set all of our frequencies for both strobe lights to 1. So we're in channel 1 and we're in group 1. We're just in 1. If you want to turn up the light output on, for example, this light in group 1, then you can actually do that by hitting the plus. And then you can hear, in a second you'll hear it beep. That means that it adjusted that strobe light. So this is literally a remote control. If you also want to test the light, you can hit the trigger. So that's the trigger button. So those are what these buttons are for. And right now I'm going to go turn the light off, and we're going to learn how to use the light meter. So this webcam really doesn't pick up light very well, so I think I'm going to turn up this light super bright just so that you can actually see. So again, I'm working with my grandma head here and the sequins. And I know the webcam is not going to show you the nice photo that I've taken here, but it will show you how to do it, how to use the light meter, and it will also, I will post the photos that I've taken so that you can truly see. So I'm going to actually turn that down to 2. And then I'm going to turn the prop light off, and you can see the prop light's off, and now it's on dim, and now it's on bright, and now it's off again. So those are the settings. For now, I'm going to turn it on just so that you can see what I'm doing. All right, so I've got my meter, my light meter, my Taconic light meter. We talked about this. Okay, we talked about turning it on. We talked about the settings that it needed to have to sync with our trigger. So we're shooting grandma here, and we want the Lumisphere to be sticking out because she is 3-dimensional, and our Lumisphere is going to read 3-dimensional light. We talked about the settings being at 100 ISO to match up with our camera. We talked about the shutter speed being 1/250th of a second to match up with the syncing of our Chrome strobe lights. Our flash has to sync with the shutter speed. Okay, so these settings are correct. So now what we want to do, there's a button on the side that says measure. So we're measuring the light. And on here, if this what light was off, right? We talked about the prop light being off when we're shooting. We can trigger the light again using our remote control, our trigger, okay? So that's what we're gonna do. So you wanna read the light in several different places. So I like to put it on the light side of the face. I hold the measure button in and then I trigger the light, and then I look in the middle there, it tells me what f-stop I should be at, 5.6, okay? And then, but when I move it, I want to read the shadow side too. So I hit measure again and I do the trigger, and now it's at 2.8, less light. Sometimes I even do a reading in the middle of the face, and it will typically give me either the same as the bright or a little bit lighter. So let's try it maybe right there. 4.4, okay? So we've got 2 point something, 4, and 5.6. Those are the f-stops. That is what the light meter is telling me. I need to set my f-stop too. Now, in my experience with this setup, I start here, but I never really end here. I usually am around 8. But I also have to think about my depth of field, right? Do I want a shallow depth of field when I'm shooting this? And if I do, 8 would be too much depth, okay? If I want my background to be blurry, I probably want to be at a 4 or 5.6. So let's start at a 5.6 and see where we go from there, okay? So I've got my reading. I can turn my light meter off. Now I'm going to go over here, and my webcam is literally where I need to be standing. I'm going to take the shot anyways. So I'm going to set my f-stop to 5.6. My ISO is 100, and my shutter speed is 1/250th of a second. I'm ignoring the light meter in my camera. I'm listening to the Sekonic light meter. Okay, so that shot is actually perfect. Super excited. All right, so now that we have a nice shot, what do? We play. So how do we play? We play with light and we play with shadow. So what can I do to play with the light? I can move the light. If I wanted to split lighting. Split lighting is when you put the light source to the left of the face and you get this really intense line down the middle of the face with the shadow on one side and the highlight on the other side. So that's split lighting. If you move it a little bit closer, like a clock, right? Counterclockwise. You're looking at the changing shadow on her face. And you just take pictures and you look and you experiment. You can kind of see the shadow moving like the moon, like the phases of the moon, right? What happens when we put it right in front? This gets challenging when you're shooting, when your light source is in your way. Yeah, it's just amazing how it changes. And once I move it in front of her face, I feel like it's too much. It's too bright. There's no contouring on her face. It's not as interesting. I can move it back. What happens when I move it back? I get a little bit of a shadow on the side of her face when I move it back. What happens? Let me show you this. The lights can go up and down. So the settings on here, you can adjust the height of your light. So what happens when I put it down and I tilt the can up? All of a sudden I have like spooky grandma. Got shadows underneath her chin and her face. So when you guys get back into the studio, these are the experiments I want you to do. This is how we learn. So I'm feeling like that's a little overexposed. What can I do? How can I change my light? Well, I can up my f-stop. So maybe I go to 7.1. Let's try that. What happens to my picture when I do that? Yeah, much better. More information in the highlights. I can also back this away. That changes the light. That lessens the light. There's multiple ways of changing the light. Okay, I can also lift the light can up as high as I can. I can change the tilt of the head back, maybe down, and then I can lift this up as tall as I want, as tall as it'll go, way up high, down below. What is the effect you're going for? This is how you learn to take good photos. You experiment. I like that. That's pretty dramatic. I still have a pretty shallow depth of field, even with that 7.1. I still see blur in the background, and I'm still getting some blur in her sequence. So now what do I do? So many things. I try on my reflectors, right? I hold my gold. Look at the change in that. Just looking through the webcam, you can probably see it. I'm filling the shadow with that gold. Okay, her face is already pretty yellow, so it's hard to really see it, but move it around. Have your assistant do this while you're looking through your viewfinder. And you say, stop, that's perfect. White, fill in the shadow underneath the face. As long as it's not in the shot, play with it. What's it gonna do? Try all of your different diffusers and reflectors and anti-reflectors. Try them all 5. And then I'm going to show you one more thing before I end this, and that is, how do I change this light softbox and put a gel on it? How do I get a color cast on my photo? So I'm going to drop this down. You do need to turn this off when you're doing this because the light gets hot. You should probably let it cool down. I'm not sure what you can see. Let me see here. I'm going to turn my webcam a bit so you can see what I'm doing. I need an assistant for several reasons, to turn all my lights on and off for me, to adjust my cameras, all of it. I miss you guys, not just because I need assistance, but for lots of reasons. But okay, so I'm going to tilt this up a bit. It's hard for you to see what I'm doing. Let me switch it. So there's this blue button here. It's a toggle button. So you undo it, it's the lock, and then you rotate this and you pull it out. Now this is still hot, so I do not want you to change this while it's hot, but I'm gonna do it because I want to show you. And then you put this can on there, and I'm really gonna be careful not to touch it. And you line it up, and then you torque it so it locks, and then you lock it a second time. So now we just have this can without the softbox. And then I'm gonna pick a certain color, and maybe we'll go for something extreme. The blue is always really kind of a popular one because it really shows up. The red's popular too. And then I'm gonna take blue tape. And all I have to do is take it in one spot, really. Sometimes students like to cast the color behind the subject against the colored backdrop, and then all of a sudden you're mixing color. You're mixing light and color. And when you mix light with color, it's different than mixing paint, and it's different than mixing glaze. Mixing light and color is really science. So we can talk about that at some point. Okay, and I probably want to come up. I'm going to tilt my can forward. And then let's turn off the big light and see what happens. I'm going to be publishing all these photos so that you can see. Okay, so I'm going to turn on my prop just so you can see what it's doing. So it looks purple. That was the dull light. No, that was the bright one. So look how much duller it is with the bright light. So what does that mean? We have to change our camera settings. All right, that's not enough light to really get a correct exposed shot. So I'm gonna bump my f-stop back to, I'm gonna go to 4.5 and see what I get. I'll work my way up. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. She looks like she's metallic. I'm gonna move it. I'm gonna get some super dramatic shot here with the split lighting here. So in this case, I feel like I need more light. So how do I deal with that? Right? How do I, my light source is bright as it can be. Actually, it is not. So what do we need to do? We need to change the settings on our strobe. So I'm gonna go up to, let's just go crazy and go up to 6. Now we're at a 6. What happens when we're at a 6? Woo! She looks an alien. That is too bright. So let's take it down to a 3. I'd say halfway would be perfect. I'm gonna leave it right there. So, and if you put a can light with a gel on the other side, you're mixing your color. Oh, so cool. Oh, so I'm getting a little bit of a shutter bar here for some reason. Okay, so I still feel like it needs a little bit more light. So what do? I use my reflector. What if I mix some gold? This is going to be hard for me to shoot because I am just myself. I'm one person here. I need someone to hold it. So I'm going to get in front of the webcam here and I'm going to take my shot while I'm holding the reflector up. Too sneaky here. I'm going to crop it right there. Trying to fill the shadow in. Oh yeah, that's cool. She looks like she's like a grandma mermaid. She's underwater. Okay. So that is all I really wanted to show you today. There's so much more you could do, but I just wanted to kind of ignite your sense of adventure when it comes to shooting in the studio. All the things we have and can use, and all the things that you could possibly create at home. You know, this might give you some inspiration for what you do at home. So, okay.